Ever wonder how animation started? Who came up with the crazy idea to draw multiple poses on paper and put them on film? Who came up with key poses, cell animation, in-betweening, squash and stretch, where you left your car keys? What was in the briefcase in Pulp Fiction? Where's the beef? Well, today we're going to look at one of those early inventors who made animation what it is today. John Randolph Bray was born on August 25, 1879, in Addison, Michigan. What's that? We don't have a song about Addison, Michigan? What about Detroit Rock City? Yeah, I know, but that's only about 100 miles away. Anyway, he entered Alma College in Michigan in 1895, but the following year abandoned his formal studies. School is for chumps. Just kidding, kids. In 1901, he became a reporter for the Detroit Evening News. During his 2-year stint in Detroit, Bray's assignments included examining corpses at the morgue in order to recreate sensational accident reports. Gross. In 1903, he moved to New York to join the staff of the Brooklyn Daily Eagle as a cartoonist, and soon after, he left to begin offering his services as an illustrator and cartoonist around New York. Bray's first important break came in 1906 when Judge accepted his one-panel animal cartoons for publication. The following year, Judge began publishing Bray's comic strip, Little Johnny and His Teddy Bears. The full-page strip consisted of 6 panels with rhyming captions. Created out of the teddy bear craze instigated by Teddy Roosevelt, the bears were accompanied by a typical boy hero named Johnny. The comic strip, which received wholeheartedly positive reviews, ran for the next 3 years. Bray also regularly contributed cartoons to Life and Harper's, as well as creating the strip Mr. O.U. Absent-Mind for the McClure newspaper syndicate. But this was only the beginning. Succeeding in gaining financial security, Bray moved out of the city to a farm in Highland Falls. Although his cartoon work continued to be well received, the frequency of appearances of his work in publications declined by the early 1910s, apparently due to Bray's increasing fascination with animation. Bigger and better toys, as it were. You see, where Winsor McCay was interested in the artistic side of animation, J.R. Bray was interested in the profitable side. Around 1910, he began experimenting with developing an original animated cartoon. However, after numerous failed attempts, Bray concluded that the number of drawings required by the process was prohibitive. Wishing to create an animated cartoon that was both entertaining and financially lucrative, he began to look for ways to eliminate the massive amount of detail necessary to produce an animated version of a comic. Bray's first completed cartoon animation was released in 1913, titled The Artist's Dream. The venture resulted in a contract with Pathé for 6 more films in 6 months, with a new film to be released each month. Sounds easy. He can do it. Nothing is impossible, right? Right? Well, considering it had taken Bray at least 6 months to create The Artist's Dream, the contract provided a challenge that Bray would be unable to meet. However, even though production times had to be extended, the need for streamlined production forced Bray to find creative solutions to the problem of how to make animated cartoons financially successful. To eliminate the time-consuming task of completely redrawing the entire cartoon for each frame, Bray came up with the idea of using a printed background. Using zinc etching, hundreds of identical background scenes with the center left blank were printed on tracing paper. Bray then added the moving components of the cartoon to the blank center, thus drastically reducing the time and the number of skilled artists needed to complete an animated cartoon. The new technique was considered an improvement over Winsor McCay's method of retracing all the lines in each frame, which would often appear to wiggle and wobble when cast on the film screen. Wishing to protect his new technique, Bray filed for his first U.S. patent, which was granted. And because patents are public records, here's what it looks like. To produce the films under contract with Pathé, Bray assembled a staff of artists that he kept sequestered at his Highland Falls home during the week. Despite the lack of distractions, it took Bray's team 6 months to complete the first project promised to Pathé. Colonel He's a Liar's African Hunt was released on January 14, 1914, followed by subsequent films in March, April, May, and August. By the end of 1914, Bray had formed Bray Studios Incorporated. Bray hired talented artists and ceased contributing artistically to his films. Instead, he focused on improving the technological processes and streamlining production. Under Bray's direction, the animation process became compartmentalized. Previously, cartooning and animation were considered art forms to be undertaken by a single artist. As such, not every animator welcomed Bray's assembly line approach. In July 1914, Bray took out a second patent that covered the technique of applying gray shades to drawings in order to counteract the flicker caused by all white backgrounds. Bray began employing animators, who relied on assistants for portions of the work. After Paramount picked up the contract on Colonel He's a Liar, Bray also began producing weekly episodes of 3 other animated cartoons created by his talented staff, including Max Fleischer's Out of the Inkwell, Paul Terry's Farmer Alfalfa, and Earl Hurd's Bobby Bumps. I mean, this is far too much work for just one guy. We had to have processes in place. Those 1910s people who refuse to work with him can go kick rocks. It's true, and I'm glad I said it.
Yep, I went there.
Bray's most important contribution to film animation was the introduction and implementation of the cell system of animation. The original inventor of the process, Earl Hurd, had patented the technique in 1914 that used celluloid, an early form of plastic. The cell process involved the drawing of characters on transparent celluloid sheets, which then were applied over painted background scenes. Because of the sheet's transparency, only the moving parts needed to be drawn without worrying about blending them into a printed background as in Bray's method. Also, the cells could be stacked to create multiple layers, although the plastic sheets were thick and tended to appear yellow if stacked too deep, which usually limited the number to 3 sheets or less. Which is why I call my sandwiches Braywitches. It confuses every Subway employee. I tell them to slap another cheese cell on that Braywitch, and then they say, "Please, sir, we've asked you not to come back in here." Earl Hurd could have begun to operate in competition with Bray. However, fortunately for Bray, the importance of Hurd's invention was yet to be realized. To prevent legal disputes over patent rights, Bray invited Hurd to become his partner and effectively took control of his patent. The relationship between Bray and Hurd is obscure. Little is known about how they met or became associated. Even though Hurd was brought aboard as a partner, he was never considered by Bray to be more than an employee of the firm. Dang, Bray, that's cold. In 1916, Bray filed for his third and last patent, which incorporated and consolidated the methods of cell animation. With a monopoly on the technological processes, Bray made a substantial fortune by selling licenses for the use of the patented techniques. Bray was even so bold as to visit Winsor McCay while he animated his breakthrough picture Gertie the Dinosaur and posed as a journalist to obtain more inside information, which he later tried to patent without McCay's knowledge or permission. All this naturally didn't make him very beloved among his fellow animators. Many took him to court. McCay won his case against Bray and received a small percentage of the royalties until the patents ran out in 1932. Okay, I didn't know we were in the J.R. Bray villain era, but I guess we are. In 1915, Bray signed a large contract with Paramount. By the following year, he had earned enough through the agreement to purchase the controlling share in what became Paramount Bray Pictograph. With the United States entrance into World War I, Bray discovered another lucrative outlet for his work: Army training films. Using a new process recently patented by staff animator Max Fleischer called rotoscoping, Bray's firm developed training films on such topics as the operation of Browning machine guns, rifle grenades, and trench mortars, as well as how to harness horses used in the cavalry. Over the next 3 years, Bray turned his attention to filling continuous orders from the military, industry, and educational facilities. In 1919, Bray severed his relationship with Paramount and created Bray Pictures Corporation, vested with $1.5 million in capital. Non-fiction documentaries and technical films became the company's leading emphasis. Despite the shift in focus, Bray Studio also continued to release cartoon films, including more episodes of Colonel Hazelire, Dinky Doodle, and Hot Dog cartoons. On February 8, 1920, Bray and Goldwyn released the first color cartoon, the debut of Thomas Cat, using a process akin to the techniques recently developed in Technicolor filming. Although it received good reviews, it was Bray's only attempt at color animation, as the process proved too expensive to be economically feasible. And Bray would be the first to tell you, cash is king.
Money, 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 money.
Bray's chokehold on the animation industry began to wane during the early 1930s when his patents ran out. Also, with the introduction of sound film, the entire film business was moving in a new direction, leaving Bray's era of silent animation behind for good. Bray remained active in his company well into his 80s. In 1963, he removed himself as president of Bray Studios. He moved into a nursing home in Bridgeport, Connecticut in the late 1960s, where he died in October 1978, just a few months before his 100th birthday. Bray's ability to shift gears and take on new projects and directions in business allowed him to maintain a respectable business well beyond the life of the silent animated cartoon. His push for technological advances along with the organization of the process went a long way in transforming animation from an art form into a profitable business endeavor. Although this and some of his business practices made him few friends, he was right that money was needed to keep animation viable to produce for the public without producing starving artists. Because J.R. Bray knew the only cure to a starving artist is
Money, 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 money.
Thank you to these people for supporting us on Patreon and Ko-fi. Thank you for watching this episode of Discographies. Comment below with characters you would like to see us cover. Further reading and references are linked below. We hope to see you in another Discography.